Good morning, everybody, and welcome in. Before we get into this morning's update, and it's an interesting day right now because we don't have any validation of what we're going to do yet. It's nice to see some green here. Yesterday, we're going to get straight to the point here. Yesterday, we know that we had a nice little drop, and now we see Ethereum's up 3.3%. Bitcoin's not really doing much, but back over 110,000. XRP's up about 2.6% at about $2.93 firmly here. But when we start to look at it deeper, it's like we got to start getting a little bit more movement here. We want to see a little bit more push here. And then maybe we can start to validate a further push back up and back inside of a bullish, more of a divergence back to the bullish side. And I only say that because in the 2 hour really had a little spike in volume. But now we need to see if we can get out of this looming head and shoulders here. You could call it a topping reversal. But it's almost, I want to get back outside of this falling area here because right now we're up at that retest for a bearish, drop here. But if we can come up higher and hold a back test here, we could absolutely start to push into a more bullish fashion. I only start with Ethereum because, we're looking for some kind of signal whether or not we're going to get into a deeper alt season or a confirmation that, the old pattern rhythm is going to play true even in 2025, just like 2024 and many years before. That the later you get into August, the more red it gets. And September, by definition in crypto, is the most bearish month out of the 12. And there's a reason for that. And then when you get into mid-November, after you start to see the pumpkins out, and, you start to clean up after that, you finish off the drops, mid-November is usually really bullish until the end of the year. Well, that's a lie. Until right around my birthday, December 17th. And then like last year on December 18th, we had an epic collapse. But that collapse is just the back test. And then we get that one more leg up, which is what happened in January. And I would have been followed by 6 months of mediocrity. But we've seen a nice push in Ethereum. XRP's obviously folded back from $3.60. But, it's still at $2.93. Sorry, I'm shivering a little bit because my body is not used to it being colder. And I'm in the shade. It's like 59 degrees. I know it doesn't sound that cold. But when you're in August, like August 26th, and you sit here and you're used to the sun, and you're used to all that, now it's, it's one of those things. It's interesting. So, doing an update here. My son's got his food therapy at 12, and he's got his school 5 to 6. So I'm going to try to do a live. Yesterday I was going to, but it just didn't pan out because the younger one had her orientation at school. And then everything, my son had a doctor's appointment and stuff like that. So it didn't line up, but everything's going good. But anyhow, good morning. 10:44 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Tuesday, August 26th, 2025. I'm XRP Future Millionaire, and I reside in the great state of Michigan. The one thing they don't tell you about when you start to have less body fat on your body is that you get cold a lot easier. When I was 265 pounds growing up, I never was cold in the winter. Now I'm 170, I would say. I'm more comfortable around 175 though, because then I know my muscle tone's better. I think I was like 172, but not where I kind of want to be a little. Anyhow, you feel a lot colder. So, but my body, we'll get used to it soon. The sun's over there. It's in that direction. I just happen to be under this big ass tree that's blocking the sun from me because it's in that direction right now. But XRP up 2.67%. A nice little rebound here today. Nice little rebound, eh? But we got some work to do because we got a little topping reversal. But it's the classic case right now. Buy support, sell resistance. Buy support, sell resistance. It really is. So for XRP, whoops, let's see. If you're using the classic buy support, sell resistance, buy support, sell resistance, buy support, sell resistance, buy support, sell resistance, buy support. So it's a pretty classic case here. That's pretty interesting. And like, you would have had to sit through like buy, support, sell, resistance. There's some stuff that happens, you know, or support, resistance. You know, it's so funny how that happens. And then it's the classic support, resistance, support, resistance, support. And now, at some point, one way or the other is going to break. So what you want to do, and now here's the thing, if you're buying support, selling resistance, that thesis ends the moment that it breaks above, and this is going to come down farther, which is great, because it was at 314 and 312. Now it's 308. So now once it breaks 308, you're not selling. If you're in that mentality. I don't like that mentality anyhow, but I'm saying if you're riding these patterns like this and that's your philosophy on buying support, selling resistance until it proves me otherwise, you would do that until it breaks down or breaks out. So if it broke down, you wouldn't buy support, and that's what happened here. So depending on where you were at, if you were looking to buy support, this is what you would have had to do, and this is the crazy thing. It all looks good, right? So if you buy support, comes up, the logic says if it breaks this after a certain level, and because it did this, bounced up and came down and came back up, when it came down again, your philosophy says you would have sold it there after 288 broke, in my opinion. So then, whoops, it would have been a understanding down here at 272 being like, okay, well, I don't know what's going on here, but so your validation would have been to buy it back here at 290 once it back tested, and then you got to ride it all the way back up to 325. But that's the spot trading. I don't like, and in this time, I think traders get burned. I think the ones who are looking at investment wise when you get into these parts of the patterns are the ones who make money. You know, there's a case that could be made that's saying we're emulating the initial push up. So, but before I leave, I just want to remember to show this. We talked about it yesterday. Okay, yeah. If we break down, and this still shows 314 if you look at it like this, but if we break down, that's how we could find ourselves in a tricky situation. So preferably we break out of this pattern, we'll go up to $3.89. But if we break down out of this, this is what we need to be paying attention to. So take a screenshot, do what you got to do. We don't want to break out of this, and it's been a great reversal so far. And that's why that 280 is that underneath real critical support. But if we break over 314, ooh, we could start cooking. And the next big area, I mean, out of this little pattern, pushes you up to 389. So, or drops you down to 192. And then you ask, why would it drop us down to 192? Oh, shit. Because there's a back test there, that's why. And you start to look at it from the wider perspective. So, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying if it did, let's say Ethereum does fall out and Ethereum has to go back a little bit, you know. So we just prepare for all ways. So if it does drop down there, prepare for an opportunity across the board. If it rises out, oh man, you're going to know the validation very quickly when it happens. We've just got to invalidate some short-term bearish, I don't want to say trends, but short-term micro movements, that's all. We got to supersede the short-term micro movements to get back into the macro flow. But you need these short-term micro drops to allow the macro flow to continue. It's a weird thing. So, but so far so good. Good reversal today. It's just right now we need to come up a little bit. We don't know anything. We need to get past here and invalidate this cross that's starting here. Because if it plays out, then you're just going to come all the way back down and reset this just a little bit. But it gets tricky. You know, you don't want to come down too far here. It'll get tricky. Because when you start looking at it now, you can actually start to widen what you're starting to see here, and it becomes almost like a wedge, you know. So it gets tricky is all I'm saying. It gets tricky if you start looking at it in that philosophy. I think you'd look at it more like something probably like Probably like that. So, I mean, you start looking at this and you can see how this could get a little tricky here if it does open into a wedge. So, and I'll show Bitcoin before I leave, because there's one thing with Bitcoin everybody has to understand. And it's something we've all been talking about. But if you're new, you're not going to understand. But Bitcoin broke down out of a rising wedge. So that's the big thing about some of these patterns. So if this did happen, you've got up at the top for Ethereum, you can see how it's going across, and if you're looking at this almost like a wedge, well, although it's not a broadening wedge, I should say. If you're looking at this as a broadening wedge, so that's what you'd be looking at here if you came down to consolidate on the bottom. But if you broke out, you get above 4,880. This expands this entire pattern now. Like, I'm telling you, this makes the initial target bigger when some of this stuff starts happening. So, everything okay, Julie? Who? Oh, okay. So if this is, oh, okay. If this is a broadening wedge and we get out of here, I mean, it upped our target here immensely. Now, I mean, obviously, we can do the other side of this. I don't think it would break down out of it, personally. I think what would probably, well, hopefully we wouldn't break down out of it. How about that? Hopefully we wouldn't break down out of this. I like to be transparent, but so yeah, there's two completely different things that can happen here off of this pattern. So let's just see what happens. The first step is to get the hell out of this area, please. You know, I don't want to deal with this much longer, because I don't want this to turn into something that gets this, you know, disturbingly bad here on the downside, because we can see the downside risk if it goes there. But oh my God, can you smell the upside potential if it gets through here? So just stay true to your plan and watch the patterns the best you can. It's a tough space to navigate, but if you have the evidence in front of you, you know, it'll help. And then the other thing I would put on here, just so you can look at it, because some will be like, well, how do we know if this is actually staying bullish? I would want to stay above this, personally. Because look, this is the problem here, though. Just like Bitcoin was starting a rising wedge, that almost looks like a fucking rising wedge. Unless that's a rising triangle. That's the other thing, though. I don't know. We'll see. Because that's going to line up with the drop down. And the rise up if it broke out, ironically. But anyhow, that's Ethereum. So you can see how we have some conflicting things that are starting to develop. So, and with Bitcoin, it's already starting to show its true colors. It had this same exact style pattern as Ethereum is in right now. And it created a big double top. And I'm topping reversal. And that looks like a rising wedge. And we already measured this down. And it's like 81,501. So that's, if that happens, I mean, oof. So we got to get back over 116,435 in short order. Otherwise, that's, unless Bitcoin's just dumping to put it into Ethereum, which would be great. Oh, it would be great. It'd be really great, actually. And then I wanted to share this because Em in the Telegram shared me this. I don't want to show his stuff, but he shared this with me, and I thought this was pretty interesting, so it'll give you something to think about. USDT daily, explosive surge from 4% altcoins, bloodbath bubble ahead. And then there's just a little technical analysis here. What's going on here? And it shows the points, the A, B, C, D, E, F, and then the G for the breakout. And it basically goes in and says, USDT dominance has completed a 7-wave diametric correction inside the descending yellow channel. Now wave G is accelerating with strong momentum. Dominance is at 4.33%, breaking the channel trend line. This confirms the end of the correction phase and signals the start of a dominance rally. And if this is true, if this is on point, it would make sense with the last dump down here going into September, or maybe through. It would make sense, because that means more money's going back into the stable coins, meaning that they're going back into a more secure dollars, so that would insinuate that more money is going to find its way, and it's starting to show in the metrics back into the stable coins is what it shows, which means less money's in the actual tokens, which means that some of the bigger players could be, in theory, preparing for a drop off here. So, you know, and it says our prior forecast from the 4% floor is playing out exactly. Capital is flooding into stables as risk off sentiment crushes altcoins. Wave structure, neo wave, diametric unfolded as an ABCDEFG. Symmetry holds large ACEG versus small BDF. Trend line break equals pattern completion. Mono count 55 out of 70. Confirms structural legitimacy. Technical support, current support 4.28%. Target 1 4.6. Target 2 to 5%. RSI bullish divergence plus rising volume confirms strength. This breakout means altcoin bloodbath incoming. USDT dominance rally equals liquidity moving away from alts. Bitcoin, Ethereum may stabilize, but alts risk heavy downturn or drawdowns. Trade idea bullish, entry long, blah blah blah. So yeah, that's just a perspective. So I wanted to show that before I left. I thought it was pretty cool that M shared that. So have a blessed morning, everybody, and we'll talk soon.